fortunate here to have two land grant institutions, NC State and NC A&T, and I know that some folks are going to have questions about, well, how does one brand versus the other, and we'll talk about that for just a second before we look at the specific materials. The general rule of thumb is that in the counties, regardless of which county office you're in or which university is present or isn't present, that in the counties it's always representative of our partnership, whether it's with local governments or USDA or what have you. So it's going to be important to put forth, and you would have seen this, those counties that got the marketing kits already, to put forth Cooperative Extension as the primary brand there. And then locally, campus-based events and services or programs or what have you that are carried out independently by each university, just like any other department or college function, however you want to look at it, will be branded, per the individual university standards. So, and there's more on this on the site, and if you have questions at the end and want us to talk more about it, we can. But I wanted to just give a quick spiel on that, and then we can go back to it as needed. And actually, I just covered that slide. So at this point, we can dig right in and look at the brand site and talk a little bit about what we have and what some of the standards and guidelines going forward will be. And bear with me 1 second as I pull up my browser. Let's see. So everyone should be looking at, hopefully, a full screen of the new brand landing page on the intranet. Feel free to shoot me a message, or Janine jump in if that's not what's being shown. But this new brand site replaces the old brand section on the intranet. So if you go to the intranet, intranet.ces.ncsu.edu, it's now in the main navigation on the left side. I believe you can see my mouse dancing around there. And if you go to that page, you'll basically get the information that I just said in terms of the differentiation between campus-based events and county events. And then you'll be directed to either the partnership brand or the individual university brand standards and the guidelines for each. But as I mentioned, we're going to dive into Cooperative Extension, the partnership brand today, and take a look at some of the resources that we have on here. And actually, before we do that, I just noticed that EIT, thank you so much to Rhonda Conlon's group, by the way, and Scott, Mike, Rod, that whole crew. If you haven't seen it yet, the website's just updated, I think, in the past hour. So you'll see on the county sites and the intranet the new partnership logo there. And regardless, even on the other NC State pages, the Cooperative Extension co-brand will be in the footer of all the pages to acknowledge that we are a part of this partnership and pretty much all that we do. So going back to the brand site, we talk a little bit about who we are and what our overall mission is, which has not changed. It's if anything, the issue hasn't been that a matter of quality of work or understanding what our purpose is, but the issue has been putting forth a consistent image, a consistent message and brand that folks across the state can understand, and when they go from county to county or program to program, engage with it consistently. Consistency is absolutely the key here, in that it's hard to build trust and recognition with folks if the extension that they encounter in one place looks and feels and talks differently than the extension program or service that they encounter in another place. So really one of the biggest drivers behind all of this is just establishing standards and providing you with tools and resources to where we can we can build and grow that consistent voice across the state. And as far as the landing page here, it just gives you a little background, and you can jump ahead to some of the things that we thought would be of most interest in terms of how to reference extension, what's boilerplate language, equal opportunity statements, and we'll look at those in a second. Downloads, meaning everything from email signatures to PowerPoint presentation templates, and then logo usage guidelines. So this is just some shortcuts here. And if you have questions about any of this, I'll point this out here too. We have, I think at the bottom of every page or somewhere on every page, there will be an employee feedback form where you can go and submit questions. All of the brand team has access to that, and we'll be particularly here in the coming days checking it very frequently and updating the site as necessary. I'd like, as much as we'd love to hit it out of the park on the first go, I'm sure that there are some things that aren't here that you might want, or maybe there's some things here that you don't use so much, but please share feedback and let us know how we can do a better job and provide other resources to help you.
Justin,
Yeah.
I think it might be important at this juncture to actually define the actual brand itself and the visual marks and how people can refer to them, since it can be segmented. Can you go back to the logo part?
Absolutely.
Alrighty. And so while he's doing that, I just want to give a quick tutorial. You guys probably have figured this out, but there are 4 distinct parts of the visual identity. The North Carolina Cooperative Extension banner at the top. And that can be broken down to use separately. And that is, when you do that, we call that the extension logo. Of course, we have the 2 university logos at the bottom half of the mark, and those are the university logos. And when you use all 4 pieces together, that's what makes it a co-brand, because we are branding the 2 universities as well as the cooperative extension entity, which comprises 101 cooperative extension centers. So I just felt it was important for us to be able to identify the parts that make up the whole of who we are. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, I'm sure there were quite a few folks wondering out there when I was actually going to talk about the logo. So thanks for calling attention to that. And that's as good a place to go next as any. At the top here, let me go back one second just to call it out in case you didn't see it. At the top of this brand landing page, you'll see a menu to go to a handful of distinct subpages to address other aspects of the brand. But we will go to visual identity, which talks primarily about the logo that Kathy just summarized in terms of the individual components. And we can talk a little bit. It has everything from minimum sizes in terms of print quality, which you may or may not be so interested in, so we won't dwell on that. But I do want to talk a little bit about usage and how, and Kathy touched on this a bit, but the expectation for those individual elements. The expectation in general is that this graphic mark is meant as a singular unit, where it will the individual pieces such as the university logo should not be resized in relation to the top extension logo, and vice versa. Fonts shouldn't be changed or anything of that nature. It might be self-explanatory, but just pointing it out. It might be tempting at times to make parts of it bigger or smaller, but when it is used as that cohesive, comprehensive co-brand mark, it is meant to be used as one single logo or image, if you will. Now that said, as Kathy mentioned, we'll skip down here a little bit. There is flexibility to separate it at times and use the extension logo and the university logos on different parts of a resource in situations where the university logos just might not fit, or they might be too small and illegible. I'll show you a couple of these. Like here's just a real quick example of, and there's, it doesn't have to be that the extension logo is always at the top left and the university logos are always at the bottom right. There really is a fair amount of flexibility here, but this was just an example to show how pulling them apart at times, either for aesthetic value or just for practical purposes, if they don't all fit, is acceptable. And I know that's a lot to take in all at once, but that's why the site's here, so that you can go back and reference this as necessary. And all of these files are also available here. We've organized them by where you can download all of the logos for print, EPS files, all of the logos as JPEGs for office programs or web use. And then you can also, in the download section, you're able to actually download all of the individual logos as well. So we're trying to make it as convenient as possible, but if you have ideas for another way to do it, feel free to let us know. Let's see, we'll jump back. While we're on the topic, is Josh, are you on the line? Is there anything at this point that I'm not really a design guru? Is there anything in terms of the design of this that we haven't mentioned that you would like to call out, or are we safe moving?
Yeah, well, I'll just say that, and I think maybe you touched on this, that we are continuing to work on this toolkit as we continue to talk with our universities, because there are guidelines on how the university logos are used and minimum size requirements for those university logos. So some of that minimum sizing for the North Carolina Cooperative Extension co-brand might need to increase in order to accommodate our university's guidelines.
All right. Well, we'll keep everyone posted as we add things to the site, which again, I have a feeling it'll be changing fairly often as we go. Let's see, what else were to call out? County center names. We have a sample of how to include county center names with the logo. We can provide those. We can provide a base file to you if you're interested as well, or we have a straightforward PowerPoint file that you can download and just type in the name, and the logo and the text box are already set. You just type in your county center name and save as a JPEG, and you're good to go. So that's another option. We'll scroll back to the top here. So I guess that's probably enough of the logo for now. I'll wait until we get to some of your questions here in just a bit and address specific things that way. But for now, we can go back and take a look at a few other things. In the referencing extension section, we get a lot of questions, or I get a lot of questions about this throughout any given week in terms of, are we sample county cooperative extension? Are we North Carolina Cooperative Extension, Beaufort County? What is the standard in terms of how we refer to ourselves, particularly from the county centers? And you will find guidelines on all of that in this section. And just since I brought it up, the standard is North Carolina Cooperative Extension, and we just threw out a county, but North Carolina Cooperative Extension, Adams County Center. So if someone was to answer the phone or something of that nature, hi, good morning, North Carolina Cooperative Extension, Adams County, or or Adams County Center, as opposed to Adams County Extension, or something along those lines. And then we also have on here everything from updated elevator pitches, which aren't really too different than they were before, but we updated some language, boilerplates to use with news releases and other materials. We get questions about this a bit as well. You know, various equal opportunity statements floating around, and this one is what our respective universities, NC State and A&T, it's kind of a little bit of a hybrid of both that leadership approved. So we have the standard EO statement and guidelines on things like public document cost statements, accommodation statements, which need to be included on things like all event programs and announcements, just to make sure that folks with that have special needs have someone to contact. And then again, we also link back to those university extension brands for additional information as needed. So that referencing extension covers, excuse me, covers all of that type of information in terms of how we consistently refer to extension. Let's see, we'll go program branding real quick. We get questions on this quite a bit as well, in terms of, well, can my individual program have its own logo, or what if it already has its own logo, or you know, if I have a program, how do I visually communicate that with this new co-brand mark and the new standards going forward? We already talked about the county centers, but the general guideline is that at this point, new programs going forward should not have individual logos. Now there are some exceptions or flexibility there, particularly when there's multiple funding sources or external funding sources, something like a 4-H, for example, that also has a national level brand, where there can be flexibility to use something like the Clover on a resource alongside the co-brand, with the general guidelines being that they would be used side by side in proportionate sizes to one another. And but we are available to talk more about individual program branding. Here's another example that we had thrown together just the other day, talking with Joanna about the local food program, and we're still, you know, to Josh's point, ironing out a little bit of this as we go, because we're honestly just getting started. But you know, there's some flexibility there as well. But as opposed to an individual local food program logo, the standard would be to use that in a, as a certain text, a certain, in a certain relationship with the extension logo. It doesn't always have to be connected underneath it or connected out to the side and used as a singular graphic. Here is another example of where this could very well say local food program as well. It doesn't always have to look just like this. So there's some flexibility there, but we're happy to help if your program has questions or want to have help developing some assets, like maybe a program specific PowerPoint template or something of that nature, or you want to have a program, I won't call it a logo, but a program mark, just to try and use when possible. We can help develop those assets as well. But this goes in, and I won't go through everything, but this goes in and talks a little more about, well, when there are event sponsors and things like that, how how do we visually communicate those? How do the logos work together? Can we use their name and not their logo? Et cetera, and so forth. And you'll find all that type of information on this page. And then
Justin,
yeah,
Kathy, in general, I think it might be helpful for those who do a lot of program and event planning to hear the rationale of why we want to avoid having separate logos and identities for those specific programs, even knowing that there will be some exceptions?
Sure, sure. No, good question. And again, there can be some exceptions to that, and we're happy to talk with you to explore your individual situation. Long story short, the rationale there is that the more individual logos and identities that we put out in the market, the more fragmented the overall extension identity and brand becomes. Think of it as, you know, a collection of islands floating around out in the ocean that, you know, it's hard to know which ones are grouped together, or a team on the court and everyone has slightly different jerseys. You know, you might be able to tell occasionally that, you know, those 2 or 3 players have similar colors. They look like they might be part of the same team, but you know, when we're all flying a different flag, so to speak, it's really challenging for folks in the market to, you know, associate that trust and value and experience that they're having with a common entity. So we're not saying that you can't market your programs or you know, foster an individual identity for them. It just needs to be in association with the overall Cooperative Extension co-brand, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
Sure, sure. And I'm sure folks will still have other questions about that. Feel free to ask them. And let's see, I guess the last thing to dive into, I don't want to ramble the whole webinar here. The last section of the site, just to give you a quick peek, and then unless Kathy or Josh want to delve into anything else, we can start taking questions shortly. But this last section is internal structure, and excuse me, this is mostly a reference piece as well. It's just a common page to find leadership contact info for both at NC State and A&T. We link to our ALS, the Advisory Leadership System. You know, district maps, our common diversity statement. We're just trying to provide a place where you can get access to all of these things together. And then we updated from a very old toolkit some time ago. I didn't even realize this existed until fairly recently. That guidelines or suggestions for how to communicate about your title, depending on, you know, running the gamut, you know, ASAs or you know, agents, specialists, DELs, county directors. And it's all fairly standard, and you'll notice some recurring themes in terms of how we communicate about ourselves, as with the county center guidelines, you know, North Carolina Cooperative Extension, Adams County Center, that type of thing reappears here. So for example, I'll just call out one real quick, and then you know, feel free to ask questions or look through the rest at your leisure. But an agent, for example, you know, in print it might be, you know, I'm John Doe, North Carolina Cooperative Extension agent in Adams County, again, as opposed to Adams County Cooperative Extension agent. And then, you know, you can also throw in, you know, your subject matter area and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of text just to say that we want to be consistent about how we communicate who we are and the entity that we represent. And with that said, that's the nuts and bolts of the brand site. We will continue to build this out and iron things out on a regular basis. If we know that there can always be more to offer. Well, actually, I lied. I'll point out one more real quick thing that we don't have yet, but will have shortly. Is in the download section, which is where you'll be able to get a great number of files. And I didn't call these out, but you'll see them as you peruse the site. You know, photo libraries, news release templates, PowerPoints, guidance on stationery in terms of business cards, envelopes, letterhead, all of that stuff is accessible on there now. And something that we don't have live at the moment, but will have shortly, is access to an online marketing template service. It's called Brand Sprocket. It's just their fancy proprietary name, but it's an online marketing templates where you can work with an on-brand outline, if you will, for brochures, flyers, cards, posters, banners, and so forth. It's not a terribly complicated system. We wouldn't go with anything that was, but there's enough in terms of having options to do different things. It's a fairly powerful service as far as how you can customize things. So we want to introduce it to you and not just fly over it during this webinar. So there'll be, we'll be introducing that as well here in just the next week or two, and then you'll be able to access that here as well. But I wanted to point that out in case you wondered what we were referring to there. And at this point, Kathy or Josh, if I missed anything, feel free to jump in. Otherwise, we can start taking questions.
Well, let's take some questions.
All right. Second here, I'm looking at the Q&A.
There are several in here about name badges that we can probably address in one fell swoop, I'm thinking. Some of the counties, the county employees don't have their name badges yet, I think is.
Oh, okay, no problem. Yeah, not all counties, unfortunately, have their packages. If you don't, you will have it by tomorrow. And the reason being there was that some of the podium placards, again, had cracked and weren't quite right. So we needed to get new ones in. So, and we wanted to send everything out in a comprehensive package. So if you don't have them, you will very shortly, by tomorrow. And then I saw a question, where did it go? I was gonna, someone asked about our plans for sending out releases or communicating with state media as far about the change. And I guess there's a long answer and a short answer. I'll give you the short one. The short answer is that we are not at this time planning to go out with any kind of broad external communications campaign. Our focus at the onset of these updates is entirely on you. In internal communications, we want to make sure that we give ourselves, a couple months or so to get everyone on the same page, to iron things out, to make sure that everyone has what they need. And then once, we all catch our stride heading into the summer, then that's when we would begin to go out. I mean, feel free, obviously you can't hide it. Feel free to talk with your local media about it, but at the state level, there won't be a concerted marketing campaign going out quite yet.
Josh, can you take the question about the Gotham font? Someone is asking if it's freely available.
And Josh, could you please reintroduce yourself? I think some people missed that.
Okay, I'm Josh Lofton. I'm the graphic designer and creative lead for the College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences at North Carolina A&T State University. As far as the Gotham font being freely available, our university does not provide it as of yet that I know. I don't know if NC State can provide it for people to download. Justin might be able to answer that.
I don't think it's a standard. It's not a standard university font for us. It's one of those things where if you have access to it or your art vendor has access to it, then that's the preferred direction. But for general everyday, and Josh, jump back in here if I'm saying this wrong, but for general everyday resources, a news release, a flyer or something that you're developing locally, Arial, just use Arial as the secondary font, and that's just as fine.
That's correct. Yeah.
Let's see, someone asks, and I think this is a fairly common question, what to do about existing inventory? Do we throw away old letterhead and envelopes, or do we continue to use them until they're gone? And I think the answer is somewhere in the middle. We don't want you to throw them away, so don't feel like you need to go and dump all of it. But depending on how much you have, we might not want you to use it until it's all gone either. I think that a rough timeline that I heard Dr. Bonanno mention was around 3 months. Try to deplete what you have in the next 90 days. If possible, if you have significant inventory and that concerns you, then give us a shout and we'll see what we can do. But in general, there will be a period there where we totally anticipate folks needing to deplete their current inventory before completely switching over. So don't worry about that. They're we'll be flexible, and we know that this type of thing doesn't happen overnight.
There's also a question here about why we're still using the name Cooperative Extension instead of Extension. And this was a question that was discussed by both administrators and both administrative teams. And the ultimate answer was because cooperative still speaks to who North Carolina A&T is and the name of its program, and because it is a cooperative partnership among the two universities as well as the 101 extension centers, the decision was made that it was the best way to identify who we are as a cohesive cooperative organization. So that's why it's still there.
Yeah, that's right. And like I mentioned earlier as well, even in counties where both universities aren't necessarily boots on the ground, it's always a cooperative partnership with those local governments that Kathy mentioned, and USDA and others. So particularly at the county level, it's always cooperative on some level. Let's see. Sorry, I'm scrolling through these trying to find some common questions. Okay, here's just a quick question. Can we share information about materials like road signs or building signage and how that will be changed out? Is there an opportunity for us to support those efforts? And I think the answer is yes, but I don't have, well, I know the answer is yes, but I don't have specifics at this point. I guess two different levels to that. In terms of brick and mortar permanent signage, we understand that more often than not, those signs are not even owned by us. They're owned by local government or others, and that could take time to build into a county budget and so forth. As you're having those conversations, though, definitely feel free to include us. I do think that we can provide support, financial and otherwise, but I don't know if Dr. Bonanno's speaker's on, but we can absolutely talk about it and see what we can do to help there. And then as far as other types of signage, and I don't know if this is what you were asking or not, but directional signage or just any other kind of signage that you might have out and about around the building, we can help with the development of those as well. And then part of the county kits, was a large vinyl banner signage for those of you that haven't gotten it. And that's, there's no mandate to use that a certain way. Feel free to use it outside if you like, or inside, but we wanted to provide something to help as a transition piece until we can have those conversations about how to update the permanent signage. But definitely include us, and we can provide resources for that. Another question that I've seen a couple times is, how can we appropriately use the new logo for apparel? And that's a great question, because I forgot to mention something. This is another one of those items that is just about ironed out, but not there yet. I would say within the next week, 2 weeks tops, that we'll have online brand stores, if you will. And this isn't to say that they're the only place that you can order these items, but you'll be able to go to an online store and choose from shirts, hats, jackets, vests, pullovers, those types of things, a variety of styles of each, different colors for each, well, different colors per the brand standards at least, but, and these folks, the vendor will already have our logos, and they'll know, which logo is acceptable on which one of those shirts or hats or what have you. So that's that will be an easy central resource if you're interested in using that. And we'll share more information about that when it's available here shortly. And then for those that prefer to use another vendor, I would just refer you to the logo guidelines here in terms of the EPS print files are the ones that you'll want to send the art vendor to, but they should be familiar with all of that. And then if the vendor has questions as far as they're reading through, they're not quite certain about what they can do, to have them get one of us a shout, and we're happy to work with them.
Okay, there's a question in here as well about use of the 4-H logo on materials, and whether or not you have to include the North Carolina Extension logo as well. And the answer should be yes, because 4-H is offered through North Carolina Cooperative Extension. So that is one of the ways that we continue to heighten brand awareness of North Carolina Cooperative Extension. And there are guidelines in the toolkit that address how to do that, and sizing and other options.
And I don't know if he's on the line right now, but Mike Yoder popped his head in the other day, and I think that he'll be working to schedule a meeting with us, or it might even already be on the calendar, to meet with the 4-H program team so that can all get ironed out. But I second Kathy's feedback there. And then I've seen this question a few times about the name badges. A different question about name badges. It sounds like some counties got name badges that may have been incorrect. And we can absolutely talk about that. Short answer, yes. If you receive badges that were incorrect for some reason, shoot me a message if you haven't already, or we can talk through that and work on getting correct badges. So thanks for bringing that up, and just again, shoot us a message. Let me know what was wrong, I guess, and whose badge was incorrect, and we can go from there.
There's also a question about A&T employees' name badges and business cards.
Well, at the county level, North Carolina A&T employees can order them through our university system. And so if you contact Cooperative Extension, the main number and the staff there, they can help you with ordering those. But a lot of the stationery and other tools have already, I think, been mailed, name badges, etc. Have all the counties not gotten them, or I'm hearing that not all of them have arrived, but I did hear Justin say that they should be there in the next day or two.
Yes, that's right. And the employees at the county level will have that same co-branded badge as well. So those that don't have them, again, they will have them. Should be by tomorrow.
Okay. I see 2 or 3 questions here, Justin, about using the logo on apparel, shirts, etc. That is answered somewhat in the toolkit, but would you just elaborate for those? Some want it embroidered, some just are asking about how to use of the logo to a vendor.
Well, again, I would go to here. I'll just show it to you. If you're on the brand site, I would go to downloads. And of course, my computer chooses now to be slow. There we go. Downloads, logos, or really you can just send the vendor the downloads link. They'll know what they need. But we also labeled the for print. Download all logo files for print. It's a zip folder with all of the EPS files, the vector files. That's what, excuse me, a print vendor or an apparel vendor will need. So all they have to do is download that folder, and then they've got exactly what they need. And then in terms of, well, what can they or can't they do with it, we link right back to the visual identity page here, and they can find guidelines for, you know, using the logo, what not to do with it, how they, you know, it can be separated in certain situations and what the standards are for that. So it's all there. I know it'll take a while to get used to it and learn where everything is, but if you just send them to the site, they should be good. And if they're not, have them give us a shout.
There's a question here, a very good one, that asks, I think it's from an anonymous questioner, but how will the public recognize the change? And even though we're not communicating it via a big press release or media rollout, that's one of the things that we're trying to do with having a unique brand that goes out, that it's on all levels of North Carolina Cooperative Extension communications pieces. So whether we're talking about programs that are conducted with 4-H agents and specialists, or whether it's FCS, or whether it's agriculture, any materials that's out there, if we consistently use the North Carolina Cooperative Extension brand, that is going to build brand awareness in the marketplace. And one of the things that I know that we keep saying is it's time to reveal the best secret in North Carolina, or the best kept secret. And I like to think of it more of, it's time for us to tell our own story, because we're really not a secret, even though lots of people don't know who we are. They've heard the name, and lots of people do know who we are, and they know what we do, but it's time to ensure that the rest of the state knows the services that we provide. And it's not just for farmers. It's not just a rural undertaking. It really isn't just youth programming. It's that amalgam of all the different and unique things that we do to help the people of North Carolina lead more quality lives. So that's why we're pushing one unified, co-branded logo that encompasses who we are. I mean, we are 2 universities, 101 cooperative extension centers, and 1 system, North Carolina Cooperative Extension.
I just saw a good question. Someone asks if there is an opportunity, or what the, I guess what our feeling would be about the use of a county seal with like a local county government seal with cooperative extension materials. You know, I think by and large it should be fine. It's, again, as long as the standards are followed for how to you know, how to co-brand with a partner or a sponsor. You know, if we're developing an event flyer, for example, you know, North Carolina Cooperative Extension might get top billing or something, but if, you know, if the local government, and they don't necessarily have to, you know, contribute funds to that specific event to be included, but they can be included per these guidelines, either by name, or if, you know, we want to use the still, that's by and large, it's kind of a broad question, but by and large, that's okay. There's just guidelines in terms of, you know, the logo shouldn't be any bigger than the cooperative extension logo. You know, one should not be on top of the other, those types of things. So, you know, as you're reading through this, if it still doesn't make sense, or you want us to check a specific resource and provide feedback, we can do that.
There are several questions about logos, when to use the NC State Extension logo versus the Cooperative Extension logo, and Master Gardener logos, FCS logos, and county center names along with logos.
Sure. It's a lot of logos. Let's see. Let's see. I'll start broad. So the general top level guidelines, rule of thumb, if you will, for the NC State Extension or Cooperative Extension is it's fairly straightforward, I guess. NC State, it's just as it sounds. It's a campus-based university. So for campus-based events, programs, services, faculty and staff, those types of things that are developed and delivered individually, if you will, those will follow the university standards. NC State Extension is really just a sub-brand, or really they call it an extended brand, but no pun intended, of the university. So think of it almost as a departmental name change or something of that nature. So our folks that operate typically within the university brand architecture will follow those unit brand standards for NC State Extension, whereas Cooperative Extension encompasses the county efforts and then other joint programs and services. So I realize that's kind of a generalized definition, but really that's probably the best way to say it. And then in terms, I think I heard you ask about certain program logos like 4-H, and really there's not a one-size-fits-all answer for that. I think it's going to come down to individual discussions, which we are available to have. So like I said, I think a meeting is either set or being set with the 4-H program team, and I believe that FCS, we're going to discuss that as well. But for other programs that have questions, or if you're not sure, which direction you need to go, just contact us, and we'll help walk through it.
And could you repeat who the contact is for getting corrected name badges?
Sure. You can just shoot me an email for the name badges. Justin_Moore@ncsu.edu. And I'll compile those and pass them on to the vendor probably tomorrow. But if you don't send them until later, I know some counties haven't received them. That's fine. Let's see. We still got about 5 minutes. Try to get to some more questions here. Sorry, trying to find a new one. Oh, someone asks another name badge question, if campus folks are getting name badges too, and yes, actually you are, and they're here. As far as NC State goes, we ordered, took advantage of the opportunity to order new name badges for our campus extension folks as well. I've got a big bag of them that I need to sort through and divvy out. So short answer, yes. Let's see, and then someone, I think I've seen this a couple times, someone asked that given the simplicity of this logo, why did it take so long to be created and revealed? And I had no doubt that question was going to come up. And the fairly short answer is that, and we'll continue to heart this, is that it's really much more than a logo. If it was just a matter of taking a graphic identifier, an image, and tweaking that image to look a little different or look a little more modern, yeah, that wouldn't take a year and a half or so. But there's a lot more to it in terms of holding focus groups and listening sessions and surveys. And please don't take this as me throwing out excuses. It's just that the situation as it was. There was administrative changes on both sides that kind of had us restart a couple times. But really, we had to take our time and make sure that we have two universities with powerful, well-established brand identities of their own. And so, mixing that all together to where everyone feels like their individual identities are being represented, well as establishing something of a unique identity for the partnership. It goes well beyond the visuals, I guess, would be the summation of that.
There are a couple of questions about the kit. Will people be getting the metal sign to replace the ones they currently have with the old logo? And I think that the answer to that is yes, because you said podium signs.
Yeah. The way I interpret the question, at least, yeah, I'm not 100% sure what. I think I know what metal sign you're referring to, but the answer to that would be yes. That all counties or all local centers will receive a podium placard with their marketing kits.
And will non-county centers be receiving these as well, like Mountain Hort?
I believe so. Actually, I need to go back and check. Honestly, I don't know that all of those are at this point in time, but it's not to say that you can't. They just weren't part. Some of them, I don't think, were part of the initial bulk order. But we can absolutely work with you to get you those materials. Everyone should be getting at least the badges. I just don't know if the podium placards specifically. I don't think that those were ordered for all of those other facilities. But if we can work with you to get a localized version, sure. Let's see. Well,
I think there are two
ahead.
questions on. I think there are two questions on separating the logos, where the state level. Can you separate the logos, the university logo, from the extension logo for a flyer?
I'll give a quick answer to that, and then Josh, jump in if I butchered this. I think the short answer is yes. It's the flexibility to separate the two elements, and if you see the website here, to separate the extension logo from the university logos isn't specific to a certain resource so much as a certain situation. If it makes more sense, aesthetically or whatnot, to remove them, not remove them, but to separate them and use them, again, this random example, to use them in different places along the lines of something like that, then yes, the answer, I believe, would be yes. I saw a couple of folks, and I don't know if I pointed this out earlier, ask about, I won't dwell on this, but where to go? Asked about the NC State, for those on campus, if there were NC State Extension resources available, and they are also covered under this brand umbrella, if you will, on the intranet. So when you go to the menu, you'll see the general overview that links to everything, and then the NC State Extension specific stuff is in there as well. And then we have some materials here, some specific downloads for the campus folks, and then everything else just I'm just trying to find the link to. Okay, and then we send them back to the university brand site for some of the other specifics. But that's available as well, and we also link to the A&T University brand resources for folks that might have that question as well.
I see a question about where state level extension associates fall under the internal structure guidelines, and even though you may not be tied to one particular program, I think what you're asking is, are you going to get name badges and other resource materials? And the answer to that is yes. I see the question is still up there. I know we've said a couple times that some of those materials are still en route to the state level programs. And if the question is, are you obligated to use the brand identities, that question also is yes. So hopefully this is what you needed to know.
And we'll get ready and wrap it up here in just a second. But again, well, I'll answer this question and then I'll get to that. Someone asks, do we need to begin using the new logo and resources immediately? And again, the short answer there would be yes. But with knowing that in some cases there may be that existing inventory that we were talking about. So if you have a pile of envelopes or something like that you ordered, and you know, you need to use those for a little while, that, you know, there's some flexibility there. But when it comes to a resource that you don't already have an inventory, or that you're creating new, then this, you know, beginning now, these will be the brand standards and to resources to utilize. And on that note, let me show you this again. We linked to this on, oops, wrong one. We linked to this throughout the site, but you'll find at the bottom of most pages an employee feedback form. If you, and feel free to email me as well, but if you have just general questions or feedback, ideas about how to improve this, or, you know, maybe what's not so good about it, just whatever it is that you want to share, or how we can make it more useful for you, please, again, share feedback, let us know. And then if you have questions regarding things, you know, name badges in a day or so, if for some reason you don't have them, or if you want to talk more about program branding, or, you know, anything of that nature, feel free to shoot an email, and we'll have that conversation. Again, I think that there'll be quite a few individual conversations to help folks come into compliance with the standards. I know there's going to be questions. I know it'll take time, and that's okay. So try not to stress it. We'll work with you and make sure that everyone feels comfortable about you know, about their place within this and how it needs to work. Let's see. So at that point, we're a little over 2:30. So Kathy, Josh, anything else to add? Or?
No, just thank everybody, and that obviously there are going to be continuing questions, and that we're available to answer those either by email or any other communications platform that you guys may be using. Justin, I know Dr. B does regular updates in his program. So just, you know, continue to ask.
All right, then, and we will keep you a couple last quick housekeeping items. I will send out a message either later this afternoon or first thing tomorrow morning, try to do it today, with a link to the brand site to everyone, just so you have it. And then when a recording of this webinar is available and posted, should be by the end of the week, we hope, I'll send another message out about that. And then lastly, as the brand sprocket training, that's the marketing templates online, as that date gets firmed up in the next week or two, we'll be reaching out about that. So again, this is just the beginning. It's the end of a lot of work and time, but today is really the first day of it all. So we'll get there together. But thank you for your time, and we'll be working with you soon, I'm sure. Thanks again.
Thank you.